All right, grand rising to everybody. So I wanted to come on here and talk about generational trauma, generational curses, and the energy of Chiron. So let's first talk about a way that you can better understand whatever generational trauma and potentially generational curse you may have inherited from your ancestors. So astrology is a really good indicator by looking at certain planets or certain asteroids and different things within your chart to help you to understand what type of trauma you may have inherited. And that'll also help you to better, to help you release that trauma, work through that trauma, and not pass it on to the next generation. So I want you guys to cast your natal charts if you haven't already done that. Make sure that your chart includes the asteroid, or what they call a centaur, actually is classified as a centaur, Chiron. So Chiron, let me explain to you the mythology about that particular astrological body. So Chiron was the child of Kronos. So what Kronos did, Kronos was a shapeshifter. And so he shapeshifted into a stallion, or what we would call a horse. And he went and impregnated Chiron's mother, Philaria, who was like a water nymph. And so when she gave birth to Chiron, he was a centaur, half horse, half human. And so the mythology goes that she was appalled. She felt that this was a deformity. And in these mythologies, there's always several versions of them, but one version of it says that because she was appalled by his deformity, she abandoned him on a mountain, and that he stayed on this dark mountain for so long that he learned to heal his own inner woundedness. Now, there's another version of this mythology that says that Apollo, the god of the sun, came and basically civilized Chiron, taught him healing, archery, the arts, and all these different things. And that is what healed Chiron, right? So Chiron is known in astrologically as the wounded healer, right? Someone who learns to heal because they have the wounds themselves, and through healing those wounds, they develop a skill. So in your natal chart, Chiron represents concealed wounds that you are carrying, things that you inherited from your parents, from your ancestors, that may not be visible on the surface, but are the root of a lot of the other issues that you have in your life, okay? So right now, Chiron is in the sign of Aries. Now, Chiron has this unusual ecliptic in the sky, so it doesn't stay in each sign the same amount of time. It stays in Aries the longest, which is about 8 years. And it stays in the opposite sign of Aries, Libra, the shortest, about 1.5 years, 2 years. So Chiron, I believe Chiron entered this place in Aries around 2018, okay? And so it's going to be here for, let's see where we are, 2005, I think for about another year. And then it's going to be moving into the sign of Taurus, all right? So Tauruses, get ready. So you want to look and see where your Chiron is, okay, right now. What sign and what house is in is going to give you more of an indication of the type of trauma that you have inherited from your ancestors. Now, the thing about Chiron, when you heal that wound, it develops into a skill, an ability, like turning lemons into lemonade. So as you heal this wound, you develop a skill that you can then use to help others do the same thing, right? So I'll give you an example. My Chiron is in the sign of Taurus, so I'll be having a Chiron return soon. Because I like to be ahead of the curve, I've already been working on my generational trauma because I don't want to be caught with pants down. But my Chiron is in Taurus, and it's in the 9th house. So what I found out through my spiritual work was that I had a specific part of my bloodline on my mother's side of the family, my mother's father, who was a part of the Black Wall Street massacre. This massacre left that part of our bloodline. A lot of the people on that part of my mother's bloodline have mental health issues, okay? And I never understood what that was about until I started working with my ancestors and I started doing deeper spiritual work dealing with my trauma. And my great grandfather, who was a part of it, was a young child when that happened. And then they moved further south after that happened. He was from, I didn't even know he was from the St. Louis area. Okay. I didn't know he was from Oakland. I'm sorry. Where did that happen at? Black Wall Street. It was somewhere in Greenwood. There we go. In the Greenwood area. And so he was from that area. I didn't know this consciously. I had to do the work and it started to reveal this to me. And then I was able to pull up his birth certificate and realize that he didn't live, he wasn't from where he was and where he started a family from. He'd actually come from the Greenwood area and then moved to the Alabama area, Frisco City, and then in the area known as Walnut Hill in Florida. So he was a implant or traveled there but wasn't born there. So once I got his birth certificate and then I uncovered that story and realized what happened, it made sense. See, what they have this study called epigenetic sciences, epigenetic studies in science and genetic sciences. And it talks about how trauma can change the expression of the DNA. It doesn't change the coding itself, but it changes how that coding is expressed by turning on or off, or what they call wrapping or unwrapping DNA sequences, right? Turning on and off things. And so this is how, say for instance, your grandfather could maybe have broken his back. Let's just say in slavery, master was abusive, broke his back. Because of that unhealed trauma, subsequently his children and their children have scoliosis, right? Which is a deformity or a curving in the back. And so this can be passed down, according to epigenetic sciences, 8 to 10 generations. This genetic change will be inherited from that generation down. So for me, my Chiron being in Taurus in the 8th, Taurus rules the 2nd house. It deals with our assets and wealth. Think about it, these people in Black Wall Street were massacred because they were wealthy, because they had land, they had money, they had a completely sovereign, self-sufficient Black neighborhood where they said it took $1 a year to leave that area. So just think about that for a minute, okay? So the white people around them weren't as wealthy as these Black people in this community, and there was a lot of envy and a lot of jealousy, but it was over assets, land, and money. Taurus. So in my 9th house, by being placed there, for me, as I healed my own wounds and dealt with my own generational trauma, I developed a skill and ability that allowed me to help others, people do the same thing. One of the things that I do is a lot of healing work. I am a Reiki master, so I do a lot of healing on that level, as well as I've broken and dealt with many people who've had generational curses. I've even worked with families, because if you're going to break a generational curse, you can only break it off that person. You can't do one generational curse ritual or workings for one person and think it's going to break the curse off the whole family. That's not how it works. So I've had, groups of one particular family, this happened several times, come to me to do this generational curse breaking and to also help them with healing generational trauma. So I'm just giving you an example of how generational trauma, and see, that was concealed from me. That knowledge wasn't something available on the surface. It's something that I had to uncover by looking at my natal chart, by talking and working with my ancestors, then by doing the genealogical research along with it, to help me understand migration patterns, why sometimes people leave from areas because there's tragedy, because something happened to them on that land, or they were pushed out from that land. So I've had this type of trauma, even on my father's side of the family as well, with some generational things that happened to the indigenous people there. But this was a major wound that I inherited that I needed to heal. And it affected me and my finances and my assets, ability to maintain assets at times. And so it helped me to understand patterns that we have been dealing with as a family, that I have been dealing with, okay? So this is how your Chiron, when you start talking to your ancestors and you start looking at your natal chart, it'll connect dots for you, okay? And you'll be able to confirm if what you're getting from spirit is true in the natal chart by looking at these things. You can also look at your 12th house. That's going to also show you karmic things, potentially trauma and things that need to be worked through in this lifetime, along with also looking at Saturn, because Chronos would be Saturn in the Roman mythology, okay? So looking at your Saturn too can also, it gives you layers of information about the type of trauma and things that you've brought into this lifetime. Now, if we don't heal these things, we pass these things down to our children. So what is a generational curse? A generational curse is a little bit more intense than just trauma. A generational curse can come from generations of unhealed trauma that basically, like cancer, metastasizes and becomes a curse, okay? A generational curse can also come from somebody in the bloodline doing something unrighteous, right? And that can bring a curse. In Ifa, there is a saying that says, or there is a belief that says, the evil that you do will be visited upon the head of your children. So someone could have done something evil, something unrighteous, and brought about a generational curse on the family. Also, a generational curse can come from somebody flat out cursing your bloodline. There's passages in the Bible, prayers in the Bible that you can speak, and I'm not going to tell you which ones because I'm not going to help nobody do something unrighteous, but that you can speak and curse someone's bloodline and cause and start a generational curse, okay? So these are some of the ways that curses can also come from, again, unhealed trauma. I'll give you an example. So there's this movie called Practical Magic. And in the movie, there's this woman who was a witch. And she ended up they tried to hang her, but she was able to jump down and break the rope. And so she was pregnant. And so they exiled her, banished her to this island where she thought that her lover, the child, her child was going to come and save her, and never did. And she experienced so much anguish and so much pain from this trauma that she put a spell on herself that she never experienced love. And because of the anger and the pain and what she was speaking and thinking, she created a generational curse on all the women in her bloodline, that whenever they fell in love with a man, the man would die, okay, to prevent them from having love, okay? And this is an example of how unhealed trauma and one person within a bloodline can bring down a generational curse. So how do you know if you have a generational curse? Well, there may be signs and symptoms, but the best way to know for sure is to have some divination done, okay? Divination done. But maybe you see a pattern within your family. Maybe there's a pattern of mental illness. That could be based on generational curse. It could also be based on generational trauma. But I'm going to tell you something. Unhealed trauma can turn into a curse. So some of your bloodlines, you may have a curse because there's been so much trauma and there hasn't been anybody in the bloodline to step in and start to heal and break and transmute that energy. So you may see a pattern of mental illness, a pattern of some type of illness. It could be that, everybody have a heart attack and die, or all this cancer within the bloodline. It could be poverty within the bloodline, where people are having a hard time maintaining wealth or having wealth and prosperity. Okay, that can be a sign, and this will be something that you'll see present in more than just one person within the bloodline. This is how you know that it's generational, okay? Looking into that, and if it's in a depth, like you'll see some families where everybody go to jail, okay? You have to start looking at that stuff. Is this generational trauma or generational curse? The way you know the difference between the two. Oh my goodness, this is the world's biggest mosquito. Did y'all see that? The world's biggest mosquito. We can't have that in here with me. Okay, sorry. Somebody's generational trauma needs to get healed today, y'all, okay? It's like a big mosquito in here. I don't know if that was a sign, but mosquitoes are parasitic. They drain your blood, okay? But anyway, to get back on subject. So, let's say this. So, if you are a Aries, or if you have Aries in your chart somewhere, sun, moon, rising, Venus, the universe is putting pressure on you to deal with any generational trauma or generational curse you may have on your bloodline. Okay. Also Libras, okay, because it's putting pressure on you through opposition. So it's blocking you in certain areas. Okay. Chiron is. And see, right now, Chiron and Saturn are in the same sign. So Saturn is really putting pressure on Aries and Libra. And I would say even the cardinal signs. So that would be Cancer and Capricorn as well. Okay. To deal with generational trauma. But the Aries is going to feel it the most intensely, most directly. The Libras, and then the cardinal signs that I just mentioned. Okay. But everybody's being required to heal things dealing with Aries. Aries says I am. It deals with the ego. It deals with self-identity, how we see ourselves. So we're going through on a collective level, a level of healing, dealing with our self-identity and who we think we are. Okay. First house stuff, right? As well, if you're a Taurus, remember I told you within about a year or two, Chiron is going to be moving into the sign of Taurus. So if you're a Taurus, if you have positions, planets in Taurus, just know there's going to be pressure put on you to heal and to deal with any generational curses or wounds that you are carrying within your bloodline. Okay. Another thing you want to look at to understand your bloodline astrologically is the 4th house. That's the house of our ancestors. That's the house of our bloodline, okay? And when you have a stellium there or planets there, or, if your Chiron is there or something, going on in that house, it'll help you better understand, again, what you inherited generationally from your ancestors. Now, as far as working with generational trauma, there's a lot of things that you may need to do and can do. And that's why it's good to understand the nature of the trauma, because it'll help you plan for how you're going to work through it and heal it. Reiki is a really good tool to use to help you to work through generational trauma. There may be other forms and modality of emotional and spiritual healing, like tapping and other things that I've seen. Qigong, and there's probably other things that you can do. Your spirit may lead you to do other things. Remember that this trauma is held in the body. So the need to get it out of the body, remember, Thoth said we have to heal things threefold: mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. So the spiritual things that you do heal the soul. You have to also heal the mind. So there may be some need for therapy of some type, okay? And then physically. So massages are a good thing. Yoga are a good thing, because we hold trauma in our bodies. In not just in our cellular DNA, but also in our muscles and in our bodies. This is why going and getting those Qigong massages, acupuncture, doing yoga, Qigong. I've even seen other things where they stretch people and they like massage different areas of the body. Like a lot of trauma is stored in the thighs. And, rubbing and pushing. And, you've probably seen these videos online, and the people are crying in agony because they're releasing so much generational and soul level trauma through these acts. Okay. Working with certain crystals is also really good. So, you may be directed to get to work with a certain crystal or whatever. Doing rituals with certain healing deities can also help you with the generational trauma. I'm offering a Chiron Reiki ritual that I'm going to be doing, inspired because Chiron has gone retrograde. So Chiron is going back over those things, saying we got to go back and deal with this stuff. So I'm going to be working with Chiron and infusing it with Reiki energy to help heal generational stuff. So you can purchase that ritual. Generational curses are a little bit more difficult and intense. I will say this: sometimes generational curses, you need to really work at it for a bit. So when I do like a generational curse breaking ritual, it's a ritual that I do for about 3 or 4 weeks. I'm gonna be honest, sometimes it may take a few months. So this ritual may need to be done more than once, depending upon how intense this curse is, how long the curse has been on the bloodline. Sometimes people have more than one curse. It could be different parts of your bloodline, and you can't just do one ritual. You have to address each part of the bloodline independently. And remember, one curse, you can't break the curse off one person and break it off the whole family. Each person has to individually have ritual work done in order to get from underneath that curse, okay? And remember, again, this ritual that I offer, a generational curse breaking ritual, is done over 3 to 4 weeks. It's not done Like, you know, my other rituals where they last about 5 to 7 days and then the work is done. And this work may need to be repeated. People, hello, these curses sometimes have been on you a long time, could be very deep. Okay. And you have to, when I'm doing this work, I have to remediate with spirit, because as I work, that's why it takes so long. They're giving me information on what else I need to do, what elements I need to add. I have to do divination to figure out what spirit needs to be petitioned to help to break this curse. Like I said, one of the things I specialize in is breaking spells, breaking curses. Generational curse is just another curse that I can break, but it takes more effort, more intention, and more information. Okay. So those rituals do cost more. Don't expect for everybody's not going to get just one ritual and it's going to be broken right away. Okay. Sometimes we may have to repeat this ritual several times, and be very consistent and deliberate in the work in order to break it. Also, once you break a generational curse, there's work that has to be done afterwards to restore that person. So you know, there's the breaking of the curse, but then there's going to be a need for a certain type of healing and ascension work to help that person bring in a different atmospheric energy spiritually. Okay. So a level of healing that has to happen after the curse is broken. Okay. And remember, you may have more than one curse. It could be a curse on the mother side and the father side. It could be a curse on a particular part of the mother side and a particular part of the father side. All of that is ascertained through divination reading of the natal chart. This is how I deal with generational curses. I don't sacrifice animals or anything like that. So it does take me time to break it. But I've done this for many clients over my years. This is not easy work. This is why I do charge a bit more for that type of working. And I just let people know ahead of time, you know, it's going to take time and it may have to be repeated in order to really break it. Okay. This is a science. This is not spookism. So, you know, people want to wave the magic wand and everything be gone away in 5 seconds. And I'm sorry, but that's just not realistic. Okay. I even had to turn down certain people because what they had going on with them was too bad. Okay. And some of this stuff is very deep and very involved, but we need to talk about it. And a lot of people, when I tell them they have generational trauma or curses, they are trying to overlook it. You know what I'm saying? And it's the root cause of all the other fuckery going on in their lives. You know, sometimes people are dealing with a lot of surface level stuff and really need to go and do the deeper root work. And I'm meaning that, pun intended, need to do deeper work to get to the root of the cause of why you have all these money problems, of why you're having all these relationship problems, of why you're having all these health problems. And we're doing all this protection work and we're doing all this, you know, uncrossing work, and why you keep meeting people who keep crossing you up, and why you know, it's because of this underlying trauma and or curse, that if you address that, you won't have to be doing all this surface level stuff and doing all this, you know, emergency work here and get you out of this crisis and out of that crisis. We need to go and do the deeper work, y'all. This is why people here are leaving this earth prematurely, why you see children and certain things happening to people. It's because of the trauma they're carrying, and they're not able to raise their frequency. As Earth raised her frequency into the 5th and 6th dimension, we have to be able to match that vibration. And one of the major things that's preventing people from raising their vibration higher so that they can stay on Earth is because of the trauma, the ancestral generational trauma and or curses that they're carrying. And that is preventing them. This is why you're seeing these calamities happen and people, unfortunately, leaving here very young and different things. And we think, oh my God, that's such a tragedy. That was so horrible that this person died and those children died or whatever. But it's the karma, it's the trauma, it's the curses that they are carrying that they need to release. They need to transmute this energy so they can raise their frequency. Okay? That they can shift their energy. So it's time for us to do that deeper work. No, it's not easy work. It's not glamorous work. It's not fun work. It makes you have to look at your shadow. It makes you have to be accountable for your shit. And if you're watching me, I promise you, you are the person in your bloodline that was meant to heal the trauma, that was meant to break the curse. So don't try to shuck it off. Don't leave it to the next generation. Don't leave it on your kids, because the demons that you don't slay, they have to slay. And I do mean this intentionally, because sometimes there's demonic forces. Every curse has a spirit accompanying it. Every curse has a entity that accompanies it. Okay. So every time that you shuck your responsibilities, you leave it on the next generation. And this is why some of us feel like, oh my God, I feel so unfortunate. You know, why is my life so terrible? I'm not a bad person. I'm trying so hard. It's because of the trauma, baby. and doing all the money spills you want to, all the love spills all you want to. People want to do the fun shit. They want to do the sugar baby shit and all this and that and the other, and then try to, instead of doing the work, the deeper work, so you wouldn't have to be a sugar baby. It's time to heal that trauma. It's time to heal that wounded energy within your bloodlines, and it affects your ability to express your own energy. It affects your ability to call in positive and good things into your life. And it prevents you from raising your frequency, because everything that we want is at an energetic level and frequency. In order to get that thing, we have to be able to match that frequency. Okay? All right, y'all. I love y'all. Remember, if you need some help doing this work, visit my website, www.enchanteddivas.com. I'm here for you all. You know, sometimes I stop doing curse breaking work. I stop doing generational work because I have to take a break, because this is heavy work, y'all. The work that I do, and I say this all the time, and I say it because I want people to understand why I charge what I charge and why I don't give refunds either, okay? This is some serious work. And whatever y'all are fighting, fights me. It takes a lot out of me to break these curses. It takes energy out of my life force body. I can do a spell or a ritual for someone and be just so drained of energy to where I'll need to sleep the whole weekend, for days, for weeks. I'll be out of it. And I have to do self-maintenance and self-care. So there's times where I will stop doing this work for a while, and I'll take it off my website and pull back and work on myself and restore myself and replenish my energy. So, you know, I'm back to doing it for now, but again, eventually I'll pull back and take a break again. This is how I maintain myself. This is how I don't die doing this, because it could kill my black ass. Like, seriously, this is serious shit. Don't play around with generational curses, y'all. Don't be out here playing around with that shit. I don't play with it either. All right, y'all. Love y'all. Peace.